Explore a comprehensive review of human resource information systems. From definition through implementation, use, maintenance, administration, and what the future holds, let's review HRIS. There are many definitions of HRIS, or Human Resource Information Systems. At the core, HRIS is a computerized system that provides current and accurate data for the purposes of control and decision making. As we've discussed the history of HR, the activities of typical human resource management functions have been at the forefront of our conversation. These activities can be classified into three broad categories. First, transactional; second, traditional; and third, transformational. Transactional activities are things such as benefits administration, record keeping, employee services, while traditional activities represent recruitment, selection, training, performance management, compensation, and other functional areas of human resource management. While transformational activities represent knowledge management, strategic redirection, renewal, cultural change, management development, and organizational development. Data are the lifeblood of an organization. The production and maintenance of data are critical to the smooth operation of every part of the organization. Data represents the facts of transactions that occur on a daily basis. A transaction can be thought of as an event of a consequence, such as hiring a new employee for a particular position for a specified salary. The organization attempts to capture the data, the facts, associated with each of these transactions, such as the date hired, the name of the person hired, and the title of the person hired, or the location where the new hire will work, and so on, and then store these data for future use. Information, on the other hand, is the interpretation of that data. An interpretation of data always has some sort of goal or context, such as making a hiring decision for a particular department or understanding the performance of an employee to make a promotion decision. Note that sometimes the data themselves can be informative without any additional transformation, for example, the salary range of a job. But other times, we must do additional work, for example, calculating totals or presenting the data in some order, to turn that data into information to answer important questions, such as, what is our full-time headcount in corporate sales? Or, which employee should be promoted? Knowledge is information that has been given meaning. Knowledge is different from data and information. More than what and why, knowledge is about how. Knowledge, therefore, consists of the procedures one follows to use data and information to make decisions and to conduct business. In many instances, such procedural knowledge is mostly hidden, residing in the minds of individuals and groups in the organization. For example, in HRIS, facts about age, gender, and education are the data. Information created from this data includes average age, gender ratio, and number and types of graduates at the business unit level. Such data and information help HR managers plan, recruit, schedule, and train different employees in different ways. Knowledge represents how HR managers can execute the recruitment plan, decide which training programs to best bridge skill gaps, or to determine what to do if an employee discrimination exists. In the HR function, data about employees and jobs are the foundation of most of the information that is critical to analyzing and making HR decisions. Knowledge, on the other hand, constitutes knowing what information is needed from a database and how to use it to achieve HR objectives. A DBMS, or a database management system, is a set of software applications, like computer programs, combined with a database. A DBMS electronically allows organizations to effectively manage data. Managing data means, first, identifying the data needed to create information that is necessary to make HR decisions. Second, defining the characteristics of that data, for example, number data versus character data. And then third, organizing that data in a manner that promotes integration, data quality and accessibility, and restricting access to that data to the right individuals. By performing these functions effectively, a DBMS turns data into an organizational resource. Rather than programming relationships between data based on a physical location, information needed to integrate data should reside within the data. Data can be stored in tables where each table represents one entity in the real world, and the information associated with that entity be stored only in that table. For example, a company could have an employee table. As an example, here the employee is an entity. So, the information about the employee, such as name, address, date of hire, would only be stored in that table and nowhere else in the database. Such an idea removed problems with redundancies, such as storing employees' addresses in many locations and then not knowing which one was correct, if the employee's address changed in one location and not the other. These tables were called relations, and from this model came the relational database model. Entities are things such as employees, jobs, promotion transactions, positions in the company, and so on. They include both physical things such as desks and conceptual things such as bank accounts. A company must analyze its business operations and identify all of the entities that it believes are important. Each of these entities is made up of attributes. An attribute is a characteristic of an entity. For example, an employee has a name, an address, a phone number, education, and so on. Attributes also have characteristics such as the type of data, as an example, a date, a number, or a character, and the size, as an example, the number of characters or the largest number that can be stored. Attributes are stored in a field of a table. Think of fields like an Excel spreadsheet cell. To represent the relationships among tables, we have to do a little bit more work. In a relational DBMS, relationships are created by having the same attribute in each table, with the value of the attribute being the same in each table. Most often, this is done by taking the primary key of one table and including it in the related table. What is the primary key? Typically, each entity has an attribute that has unique values for each instance of the entity. For example, each employee has a social security number that is unique, i.e., only one person has that particular number. Other entities, such as jobs, locations, and positions, can be assigned a unique number if one doesn't exist. These unique attributes can be used as a table's primary key. Given that we have the unique attribute to create the relationship, we simply store the attribute in the related table. So if an employee is associated with a position, we have two tables, the employee table and the positions table. Then we take the primary key of the employee table and store it in the position table to make the relationship. So let's take a look at what we just talked about represented visually. How does information fit into a relational DBMS? Remember, tables are used to store information about entities. As illustrated here, one table is created for each entity. In this example, the driver table, car table, moving violation table, and the parking violation table. Attributes are stored as columns, also called fields, in the table. As noted earlier, attributes represent a single data element or characteristic of the data table. For example, a table of driver data would have the following columns or characteristics: first name, last name, street address, city, state, driver's license number, expiration, and so on. Each of these characteristics represents an attribute or field of the table. Each table in a database contains rows. Rows are also referred to as records and represent an instance of an entity. For example, in the driver's license table, each row contains data about a particular driver, and each column contains data that represents an attribute of that driver, such as name, phone number, and license number. In the latter half of the 2000 decade, a new architectural model has become prevalent called cloud computing. Cloud computing can be defined as computing architecture that uses the internet as the central remote servers to maintain data and applications. Hosted services are then delivered over the internet. Cloud computing technology allows businesses to use applications without having to go through the complex installation process. It is noticeable that in the cloud, or cloud computing, was inspired by the cloud symbol that one uses to represent the internet in flowcharts and diagrams. The underlying goal with cloud computing is to reduce the resources needed by companies in maintaining and running databases and applications. To achieve this, a server cloud or group of computers are operated off-site and accessed through the internet. In this way, a company can utilize the processing and storage powers of these clouds of computers without actually having to own or invest in them. This can reduce software and equipment capital outlays, as the company does not need to keep purchasing new software or hardware to keep pace with ever-changing technology. That investment becomes the responsibility of the vendor offering the cloud computing services. Cloud computing can be sold on demand, by the minute or the hour, and is elastic, meaning that an enterprise can consume as much or as little of the service as they want at any given time. From an accounting perspective, an enterprise leases a present amount of computing power over an annual period. This can be budgeted in a similar manner as electricity expenses. Computing charges can become part of an operating budget expense as opposed to large capital investments. As we have discussed, an HRIS often exists as one of the main parts of an overall enterprise software solution for a company. Yet, the HRIS is not a monolithic solution even within the HR business process. There exists alternative software applications that solve specific HR business problems. Let's discuss these types of solutions and the pros and cons of using multiple applications and technical infrastructure. In general, an architecture that combines products from multiple vendors is called best of breed, or BOB. HR automation by going best of breed, that is, finding the best time tracking system and the best payroll system, and so on, is a great example of BOB. The SDLC is a formal, multi-stage process through which information systems are implemented. Specific phases include planning, analysis, design, implementation, and maintenance. Let's explore each. A process model describes and represents the key business processes or activities conducted by the organization, such as applicant tracking. The specific type of process model typically used by organizations is a data flow diagram, or DFD. A DFD is a graphical representation of key business activities and processes in the HR system, the boundaries of this system, the data that flow through the system, and any external individuals or departments that interact with the system. Now, with an understanding of data flow diagrams, let's switch gears to working with vendors. Although building a new HRIS from scratch with internal resources may be a viable option for some organizations, by far the most common decisions that HR departments will make is to work with an external vendor to develop or acquire a system. To do this, HR staff will need to work closely with both internal IT department and external vendors to ensure that the business process requirements and all technical requirements are represented to the vendor. The first step in this process is to develop a request for proposal, or RFP. An RFP is a document that solicits proposals and bids for proposed work from the potential consultants or vendor. An RFP defines the organization's goals and requirements for the new system. It provides the details that define hardware, software, and service requirements. For the organization, it provides a structured approach that minimizes the chance of omitting important criteria. On return from vendors or consultants, it simplifies the vendor comparison process by providing a format to elicit consistent and complete responses. After the RFPs are sent, the vendors will evaluate them and determine if they have a product that would fit the company's needs. If the HR and IT staff have put together a strong RFP, then they should get a set of vendors who have a better understanding of the company's specific needs, who can provide a better tailored response and proposal for an HRIS. After receiving the vendor responses, you will have the opportunity to evaluate the relative strengths and weaknesses of each vendor. To do this, you should consider several things and assess software options according to a number of criteria. These might include functionality, IT architecture and integration, price, and vendor longevity and viability. A common form of reporting HR analytics data is in the form of a dashboard, as you see here. Dashboards are an enriched component of reporting. Dashboards align real-time analysis of organizational and HR processes, as well as an increased capacity to aggregate organizational data. Dashboards also contain business unit analysis to permit managers to drill down to examine metrics on several levels with the organization. The dashboard allows users to maintain a current snapshot of key HR metrics. Notice how the dashboard here provides summarized graphical and tabular information for the executive, which they will use to make HR and employee decisions. Data integrity refers to maintaining and assuring the accuracy and consistency of data, and is a critical aspect to the design, implementation, and usage of any system which stores, processes, or retrieves data. The overall intent of data integrity is to ensure data is recorded exactly as it was intended to your HRIS system or database. When you're ready to retrieve data at some point in time in the future, maintaining accurate data ensures that data is the same as when it was originally provided to you and recorded in your database. Data integrity is ensured through proper system maintenance. Maintenance is often a forgotten component of HRIS. The primary objective of maintenance is to prolong the useful life of the HRIS and begins once a new system is put into operation. Consequently, a critical part of maintenance is the evaluation of the HRIS. Garbage in, garbage out. A phrase and concept to remember in HRIS, and one of my favorites. Why? Because the quality or correctness of the data that you enter into your system will determine the overall quality of your HRIS. Bad data entered into the system will result in overall system failure. There are times when pieces of data are entered into an HRIS incorrectly. At the onset, mistakes in data input may seem insignificant and easy to fix. However, if not corrected, these data errors could have far-stretching implications, aside from just having the wrong name or content appear on a report. HRIS can assist managers charged with improving the efficiency of HR administration by reducing costs, enhancing the reliability of reporting, and improving service to internal customers. Information technology facilitates administration in multiple ways. First, an HRIS can help improve data accuracy by 1. Reducing the need for multiple inputs, 2. Eliminating redundancies in data, and 3. Reducing the opportunity for human input errors and associated corrections. In addition, an HRIS, through a relational database, speeds the process of building reports with simple query capabilities. Moreover, an HRIS, if properly designed for flexibility, can support differences in reporting mandated by governmental jurisdictions. Finally, a properly designed HRIS permits secure data distribution while providing desired privacy for employee data, facilitating consideration of alternative methods for consolidating and improving services to internal HR customers. What kind of threats are our organizational security practices protecting us from? In security, it's important to know your enemy. You have to understand your vulnerabilities. Common security threats for HRIS include, first, human error, next, disgruntled employees or ex-employees, or other internal attackers, external hackers, and natural disasters. Best practices in security for an HRIS include adopting a comprehensive information and security privacy policy, storing sensitive data in secure HRIS and providing appropriate encryption, disposing of documents properly, building document destruction capabilities into Office infrastructure, updated technical, firewalls, antivirus, anti-spyware, and so on, and non-technical security education, training, and awareness measures, and conducting privacy walkthroughs and making spot checks on proper information handling. Our world is changing. Employees can work anywhere, anytime. HR has shifted to a more strategic focus. HR still has administrative responsibilities, and the delivery of software as a cloud-based application has enabled any size company to take advantage of the efficiencies and effectiveness of strong HR systems functionality. However, the implementation of effective HR technology solution is still a challenge, requiring leadership, communication, management, and buy-in from our employees. Technology has changed our world in general and the world of human resources.